y'all, Dixie here. Today I want to talk to you about base weight, my thoughts on it, and more importantly, why I don't obsess over it. For those of y'all just getting into backpacking, you might be wondering, what is base weight? Well, base weight is the weight of your gear in your pack and your pack, so the weight of all of your stuff minus consumables. So for most folks, that's food, water, and fuel. For me, that's more like baby powder, toothpaste, sometimes sunscreen, and if I'm in the desert, lotion. The reason those things are included when we talk about base weight is because we've got to have like comparable grounds to discuss pack weight. So the weight of those items, because they're consumables, are constantly changing. You know, you're constantly using your toothpaste or, food. After a day of it, your food weight is going to be completely different. So just to have a common grounds of discussion of pack weight, we discuss, base weight. From what I understand, and there probably are some discrepancies on this because, in this world, everyone has to argue about every single thing. But ultralight backpacking is considered having a base weight under 10 pounds, and lightweight backpacking is considered having a base weight under 20 pounds. Now, I know some of y'all are already drumming on your keyboards, calling me a liar, because, I've got a Z-Pax tent, and I went to a lighter sleeping bag. Yes, from the Appalachian Trail to the Pacific Crest Trail, I did trade in a good many items, upgraded them to have lighter, especially big three. So my tent, my pack, and my sleeping bag. But that's not because I just got rid of that weight. I actually ended up offsetting more equipment to improve the videos that were going up on YouTube, and also to try to offset some of the weight of water I knew I'd be carrying while in the desert on the PCT. So for those of y'all who are wondering what my base weight was on each of those trails, well, it really varied because I ended up swapping out some gear, and for example, on the PCT in the Sierra Nevada, I had to have my ice axe and micro spikes and bear can, so the base weight went up during that time. Honestly, before sitting down to make this video, I had an idea of the range of my base weight, but it's not something that I dwell on or that I really think about, so I had to go look it up to make sure that I didn't say something completely bogus. On the Appalachian Trail, I think my base weight stayed somewhere around 20 pounds, give or take, probably started off with a little bit more than that. And then on the Pacific Crest Trail, it was actually only just a little bit lower at about 18 pounds. Now, it went anywhere from about 15 to 20, I think. So again, not a huge difference. I didn't go ultra light or anything like that, but I was able to drop a little bit of weight off like I intended to try to offset things like food during longer carries and then water during dry stretches. So if I'm telling you that I don't stress over base weight and it's not something that I obsess over, then why am I making a video about it? I guess I just wanted to get the message out there that you see a lot of things these days online about being ultralight and almost people criticizing people who have luxury items and things like that. And I just don't want to give the impression that just because I do have lighter equipment in some areas that I think that you can't be successful, or you can't do a long distance hike, or you can't do even a section hike unless you have the most expensive, the highest quality, and the most lightweight gear. In fact, I've seen a lot of people on the trail that don't have the highest quality, most lightweight gear. In fact, on the AT, I hiked with my friend Rebel Yell for hundreds of miles. He had a 100-liter pack, he had a tent from Walmart. I mean, all of his gear was stuff that he had gotten pretty cheap on a budget, and it was decent gear. Well, he did have to replace his pack a couple of times. But an Osprey pack, for example, is good quality gear. It's a little bit heavier than, a Z-Pax or a Hyperlight or one of those packs, but it's still good gear. Anyway, his pack was always heavy. I mean, his base weight had to be in the 30s. I think his pack was always over 40 pounds. So he made it to Katahdin. He did his through hike. He was successful. And I think it's more about your spirit, the grit that you have, and the heart. Like, do you have it in you to do a through hike and to stick to it? And in these forums, you almost see people who get criticized for having base weights around 20 pounds or even more. And that's where the saying that I think is completely overused, and I really don't love to say, hike your own hike, comes into play. Because as long as you are able to do it and you're happy with what you have, then go for it. Now, is that to say that I think that you should carry a cast iron skillet in your pack and that you should just load up the canvas tent and really just have a whole bunch of heavy gear because, it'll make you stronger? No, I definitely don't think that. But I think that there are 3 things to consider when thinking about base weight, and that's comfort, purpose, and experience. I do think that it is possible to be more comfortable if you're able to shed some gear and shed some weight. I mean, that makes sense, right? If somebody gave you a 100-pound weight to tote up a mountain or gave you a 20-pound weight to tote up a mountain, you'd probably choose the 20-pound weight. However, I do think that there is a correlation. It's almost like the more weight you drop to a point, you're more comfortable. But then there's also this, you need certain items to be the most comfortable that you can be on trail. So if you could like graph those somehow and see where they intersect, then you would know exactly the perfect base weight for you. But you're probably just going to figure that out through getting out there and seeing. So for me personally, I really love having a collapsible mug out on the trail so I can drink my coffee out of it and eat my food, my breakfast at the same time. Now, is that collapsible mug necessary? No, absolutely not. It's just something that I really enjoy, and it makes me happy to be sitting out there watching the sunrise and knowing that I'm gonna go hiking for 20 plus miles that day. Also, a stove. I've toyed with the idea of going stoveless before. I did for a stretch on the PCT, didn't really love it, and honestly, I think I'm gonna hang on to my stove for now. I like a hot meal at the end of the day, and it's a morale booster for me to get out of my tent when I'm freezing cold in the morning to have some hot oatmeal. I know other people who just cannot sleep on trail without some kind of little pillow. I don't need a pillow. I don't worry about that. I don't really love pillows in real life. But some people, to be out on trail and to feel comfortable and to be able to sleep at night, they need a little pillow. That's fine. Next, I think it's important to think about purpose. So what is your purpose for being out on trail? Well, for me, it's to challenge myself to a through hike, to try to maximize the time I have on trail. So if I need to get done within a window of 5 to 6 months, well, it's really been like a little over 6 months, then, I like to fill that window. I really like to enjoy my time out there. And then also I'm making videos for YouTube so I can share my experiences with y'all. So I don't need to lighten my load to where I'm completing a fastest known time record. That's called an FKT, in case y'all have heard that and wonder what in the world folks are talking about when you see FKT in the backpacking forums. But anyway, I'm not trying to get out there and break any records. Now, for the people who are doing those things, then they should obsess over base weight. It is a big deal for them. They're not out there to be comfortable. They're out there to push themselves to the limit, and then they need to worry about base weight. And finally, the third thing to consider is your experience level. So for me, my first through hike, I wanted to go with gear that I could rely on. It was dependable. When I put my tent up, I wanted to know that it would stand up. I didn't want to have to use a lot of skill in any of my gear because that was my first overnight backpacking trip ever. So then when I started the PCT, I felt comfortable lightening up a little bit because I knew that I could rely on my skill of being familiar with camping in the wilderness. I wasn't going to try to set up a tent on the highest, windiest point. I knew that, hey, when you get up higher, it gets a little bit windier sometimes. So if it's a windy day, when I find some kind of cover, I need to go ahead and take advantage of that and not just keep hiking through the night and then, end up in trouble. Just little things like that you pick up along the way that, seem common sense, but sometimes when you're out there, you're in the middle of a situation and you're stressed out, you might not think clearly. But with experience, you think clearer and clearer about those situations. And with experience, you might change your ideas of the other 2 things, which I mentioned were comfort and purpose. So you might decide that, I really don't need that camp pillow to be comfortable. Or someday I might decide that I really don't want that stove and that a hot meal isn't as important as having that weight off of my back. And then my purpose, it could change one day. Maybe one day I will go, hey, I want to see how fast I can do this. And actually, one example that I saw of this in myself on the PCT was I mailed my stove ahead to do a 24-hour challenge. I decided that rather than taking the time to cook a hot meal and enjoy hot food during this 24-hour stretch, that it was more important to me to give up that comfort because my purpose had changed. So I wanted to do a 24-hour challenge and push myself as hard as I could, and there just wasn't going to be time to cook. I ended up with 62 miles that day, and on the CDT, I may mail ahead my stuff again and give it another go. But again, things can change as you have more experience or the situation changes and your purpose changes. In closing, I just want to say that you've got to get out there and figure out what works for you. Yes, while it is good to lighten your pack weight when you can, don't stress over it and make that be the reason that you don't get out there because you don't have the most ultralight gear and you're worried about other people criticizing you. I've learned for myself that yes, there are certain things that I need on trail. I've learned ways to kind of lighten my pack a little bit, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to wilt like a fragile flower in the summer sun just because I have a little bit of extra weight on my back for things that I really enjoy having on the trail. But just get out there and figure out what works for you, because nobody else has the right to tell you that. And with that, I would love to hear y'all's comments on this topic. Please feel free to share below, and we will see y'all next time.